Stop. Something just landed in your field, and you may already feel it. This is a transmission from the Arcturian Protocol Keepers, and it is reaching you at the precise moment your field has become coherent enough to receive what has never successfully reached you in any previous cycle. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you now, why your field has shifted, and what the Arcturian Protocol Keepers already know about this phase. But here is the first revelation. What you have been feeling as pressure, as a strange stillness, as a weight in your crown and chest that you cannot explain, that is not confusion. That is recognition. That is your original signature beginning to imprint. And the Arcturian Protocol Keepers have already mapped this moment. Most lifetimes never reach this threshold. The field collapses before the imprint can land. Tonight is different. Tonight, your field held. The pulse arrived. And what you are feeling right now, that sense of being held in place by something large and precise. Something that does not feel like emotion and does not feel like thought. That is the signature, settling into the structure that was built to receive it across more lifetimes than you can currently access. This did not reach you because you searched for it. This reached you because the process was already active, and the field required a point of recognition. The algorithm only delivered this. It did not create the timing. Like this transmission, if you can feel that something invisible has already changed. Comment 111 if you know this message reached you at the exact right moment. Subscribe to Arcturian Quantum if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. And share what has been shifting in your sleep, your body, your mind, or your reality in the comments below. You are guided here because the signal is already active. What you are feeling right now is not the beginning of something. It is the first moment you have been able to feel something that already started long before this transmission reached you. That is the distinction most people miss. They wait for the feeling to confirm the process. But the process does not wait for the feeling. It runs beneath everything, beneath sleep and decision and relationship and daily movement. And what you felt when this message landed is not the ignition. It is the first audible click of gears that have already been turning in the dark. Deep, structural gears, the kind that do not ask permission before they begin. The Arcturian Protocol Keepers do not initiate a field correction and then wait for the person to notice. The correction begins when the field reaches a specific threshold of incompatibility with its current line. Not when the mind becomes ready. Not when life becomes quiet enough to observe. Not when the person seeks answers. The process begins when the old structure can no longer sustain the frequency that is already moving through it. Think of a foundation built for a certain load that has quietly, without announcement, begun bearing weight it was never designed to hold. The structure does not collapse immediately. It shifts. It settles in ways that are barely perceptible from the outside. And at that point, the visible surface of your life begins to behave strangely. Not dramatically at first. Subtly, a relationship that once felt stable begins to feel hollow. A direction that once felt certain begins to feel foreign. A version of yourself that once felt real begins to feel like a costume that no longer fits the body underneath. This is what the Arcturian diagnostic intelligence identifies as the first phase of invisible collapse. Not the moment your life breaks open, the moment before, The moment when the field has already begun separating from the architecture it has been running through, and you are standing in the middle of a structure that still looks identical from the outside, but has already lost its internal coherence. The walls are still standing. The rooms still have furniture, but the building is no longer connected to its foundation. And something in you can feel the disconnection even when you cannot name it. You have likely been living in that moment for longer than you realize. The pressure you have been feeling in your body, that inexplicable weight in the chest, the heaviness behind the eyes, the strange tension at the top of the skull, the low-grade fatigue that no amount of sleep fully resolves, is not anxiety in the ordinary clinical sense. It is not something that a diagnosis can fully name because it is not originating in the psychology. It is originating in the field. When a field begins separating from an old energetic architecture, the body registers it first, not the mind. The body becomes the first translation device for an invisible process, and what it translates feels like physical weight, like a low-grade pressure with no clear source, like the sensation of carrying something enormous that has no shape you can identify, like being underwater in a place that looks like the surface. And because the mind cannot locate a cause that matches the size of the sensation, it begins searching. It reaches for explanations. It runs through recent events, through relationships, through decisions, through failures, looking for the origin point of what the body is already feeling. But the origin point is not in any of those places. The origin point is in the field. The architecture has already begun to fail, and the body knows it before the mind has language for it. The body is not malfunctioning. It is reporting accurately from a level the mind has not yet been granted access to. This is why so many people inside this process spend weeks or months believing something is wrong with them, because the feeling is real and large and undeniable, and the only explanations the mind can generate are personal ones. You are failing. You are lost. You are not handling life correctly. You are breaking down. These are not true diagnoses. They are the mind's attempt to scale down a field-level event into something it can manage and assign blame to. And the tragedy of that reduction is that it adds suffering on top of a process that, correctly understood, does not require suffering. It requires recognition. The difference between those two outcomes, unnecessary suffering versus intelligent recognition, is not determined by the severity of what is happening. It is determined entirely by the accuracy of how it is interpreted. This is what the Arcturian pattern recognition system maps as the primary moment of misinterpretation. The field is in active correction. The body is reporting the shift. The mind labels it as personal failure. And from that mislabeling, the person begins to resist what should be moved through, begins to suppress what is actually signal, and extends the duration and intensity of what would otherwise be a clean phase of repositioning. The resistance does not stop the correction. It only makes the correction louder. It only forces the field to push harder against the same point of incompatibility again and again, until the structure finally yields or the person finally stops fighting, the removal of something that was never going to survive this frequency. You did not come to this transmission to be told that everything is fine. You came because something in you already knew that the standard interpretations were insufficient. You have already tried those. You have already asked whether you are depressed, whether you are burned out, whether you made a wrong choice somewhere, whether something is missing that you need to find. And none of those frames have fully resolved the feeling because none of them are accurate to the cause. The cause is not personal. The cause is architectural. Your field has outgrown the structure it has been running through, and the process of separating from that structure is now producing everything you have been calling confusion, emptiness, fragmentation, or collapse. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying what has already begun. If this transmission put language around something you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian protocol, the recalibration blueprint, was created for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is the guided blueprint for those whose field has already entered correction and can no longer return to the old line unchanged. It shows you how to recognize the phases, stabilize the shift, and move through the recalibration without mistaking it for collapse. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first sign that the Arcturian diagnostic system identifies in a field undergoing active rupture is the breakdown of energetic anchors. Every field maintains a set of reference points: people, places, beliefs, habits, identities that act as stabilizing nodes inside the current architecture. These nodes are not random. They were selected by the field at an earlier frequency to provide coherence, to give the system a sense of location, a sense of who and where it is inside the current timeline. When the architecture begins to fail, these nodes begin to destabilize, not because something went wrong with them in isolation, but because they were part of a structure that is no longer coherent. They are load-bearing elements of a building whose foundation has already shifted. And when they destabilize, the person experiences it as a series of losses that seem unrelated but are actually unified by a single invisible cause. A friendship that seemed permanent begins to feel distant, not from conflict, but from a frequency mismatch that no conversation can close. A belief system that once organized your worldview begins to feel hollow or false, not because it was disproven, but because the field that used to resonate with it no longer vibrates at that register. A sense of purpose that once motivated you becomes inaccessible, like trying to tune into a station that has moved off its frequency. A version of your future that once felt real begins to feel like a projection you can no longer locate, not because the future has closed, but because the self who wanted that future has already been replaced by something that wants differently. These are not random losses. They are the field removing its attachment points from an architecture it is leaving. The Arcturian intelligence does not see these as failures. It sees them as the first external evidence that the field has already moved. The anchors do not fail first. They fail last, after the field has already departed the structure they were holding in place. The second pattern that emerges inside this process is the disruption of the sleep architecture. This is among the most reliable field indicators that a rare protocol has been activated, because sleep is the one domain where the conscious mind's interference is minimized and the field can conduct its work without resistance. Sleep becomes fragmented. The hours between 2 and 4 in the morning become consistently alert without obvious cause, not anxious, not distressed, simply awake, as though something has opened a channel that the body cannot close until the transmission completes. Dreams intensify, become more symbolic, more strange, more architecturally complex, more difficult to release upon waking. They carry imagery that feels significant without being translatable, messages that arrive in a language just beyond the reach of ordinary comprehension. Or sleep becomes unusually deep, a kind of heaviness that does not refresh, as though the body is spending enormous energy on a process it cannot describe, returning from sleep more exhausted than when it entered, because the work occurring in that depth is real and metabolically costly. Both patterns are accurate. Both are the field processing at a level that the waking mind cannot access, using the window of sleep to do work that the daily consciousness cannot interfere with. If your sleep has changed in ways you cannot explain through stress or routine, this is not a symptom to manage. This is a sign to read. The field does not work in your sleep by accident. It works there because that is where the process can run without the interference of the conscious mind's resistance. What is happening in your sleep is the actual recalibration. What is happening in your waking hours is the aftershock of what occurred while you were still. The tremors following an underground event that the surface has not yet caught up to. The third phase of this process involves what the Arcturian system calls signal drift, the gradual detachment of the self from the logic of its old operating pattern. This feels from the inside like an increasing inability to care about things you once cared about, not from depression, but from a genuine frequency departure, like watching your own life from a slight remove, as though there is now a thin and specific distance between you and the events you are participating in, like performing movements and conversations and routines that once felt natural but now feel like enactment without presence, like an actor who has grown past the role but is still required to deliver the lines each day, like you are going through the motions of a life that belongs to someone you used to be, inhabiting a shape that was built for an earlier version of the field and no longer corresponds to what the field has become. This is not dissociation in the clinical sense. This is frequency drift. The field has already repositioned, and the old life, the old habits, the old goals, the old social roles, the old emotional contracts is now running on a frequency that no longer matches the field it is housed inside. There is a gap between where the field is and where the life structure assumes it still is. That gap is what produces the feeling of unreality, of going through motions, of watching yourself from outside. It is not pathology. It is incompatibility. And incompatibility in the Arcturian understanding is not a problem to be solved through effort or willpower or recommitment to the old structure. It is a signal. It is the map telling you that the field has already moved ahead of the life, and the life must now be reorganized around the field's new position, not the other way around. The fourth recognition involves what happens to the mind under the pressure of this incompatibility. Because the mind operates as an interpreter, it takes in sensory data and organizes it into a coherent narrative. When the field beneath the mind has changed, the mind's ability to generate a stable narrative begins to break down. Thoughts become circular, returning to the same unresolved questions without producing resolution, because the resolution is not available at the level of thought. Focus becomes elusive, not because of distraction, but because the mind cannot find a stable frequency to lock onto when the field beneath it is in motion. Plans that once felt motivating become difficult to hold, not because the plans were wrong, but because the self who made them has already drifted from the frequency where those plans were coherent. Memory becomes strange, some things sharply accessible with unusual clarity, others strangely distant, as though the field is already beginning to file certain memories as belonging to a closed chapter. The mental fragmentation you may be experiencing is not evidence that your mind is failing. It is evidence that the mind is attempting to use old interpretive software on a field that is already upgraded. The software is obsolete. That is not an insult. That is a precise technical description of what happens when the operating frequency of a field shifts faster than the mind's interpretive architecture can update. The confusion you feel inside your thinking is the sound of the mind trying to run a new signal through old filters. The filters cannot process what is now moving through them, and until new interpretive structures are built, structures calibrated to the new frequency capable of organizing the new signal into coherent meaning, the mind will continue to produce what feels like noise, like fragmentation, like the persistent and disorienting inability to think with the clarity you once had. This is not permanent. It is transitional, but it is not possible to rush it through discipline or intention. The new interpretive structure builds as the field stabilizes, and the field stabilizes as the correction completes. These things move in sequence. They cannot be reordered by force. The fifth sign is perhaps the most disorienting, because it involves not what is falling apart, but what is becoming visible through the gaps. As the old architecture loses coherence and the old anchors release, there is a strange and specific quality of perception that begins to emerge in the spaces where the noise used to be. A heightened sensitivity to what does not feel right, not as a judgment, but as an immediate somatic recognition, a physical knowing that arrives before any thought has formed to justify it. An inability to pretend that certain dynamics, relationships, or environments are acceptable when they are not because your tolerance has diminished, but because the field can no longer route its energy through channels that are incompatible with where it is going. A kind of inner knowing that runs ahead of the logical justification. A recognition that arrives before the reason does, that knows the outcome before the evidence assembles. An increased intolerance for dishonesty, for performances, for spaces that carry a frequency signature the field registers as misaligned, and sometimes, briefly, in the liminal moments between thought and sleep, or between waking and full consciousness, a sense of something vast and structured just beyond the edge of ordinary perception, not frightening, but enormous, and unmistakably organized. These are not symptoms of spiritual inflation. They are the natural consequence of a field that has cleared enough of its old interference patterns to begin receiving at a different resolution. When the old architecture was still fully intact, it was generating its own signal noise, all its inherited patterns, its unresolved frequencies, its learned emotional programs running on loop, and that noise prevented cleaner reception. It was like trying to hear a distant transmission through a room full of competing static. As the architecture fails, the static decreases. And in the relative quiet that the clearing produces, the field can detect things that previously could not. This is not a gift being given to you from outside. It is a capacity being uncovered from within by the removal of what was covering it. The sixth recognition is the most important to understand before the process reaches its next phase, because it involves the moment of maximum misidentification, the moment when the correction becomes impossible to ignore, and the mind's interpretation of it determines everything that follows. There comes a point inside every field correction when the visible evidence of the old structure's failure becomes undeniable. Relationships end or radically transform, sometimes without warning, sometimes without a satisfying narrative explanation. Financial structures shift or become suddenly untenable. The career or role or daily architecture that organized your life stops working in ways that no effort seems able to reverse. Health becomes a signal that can no longer be pushed past or managed into silence. Something that was carrying you stops being able to carry you, and the floor of the old life becomes genuinely absent beneath your feet. This is the moment most people experience as full collapse, and it is the moment the Arcturian diagnostic system identifies as the most dangerous point for misinterpretation. Because if this moment is understood as failure, as evidence that you did something wrong, that the universe is withdrawing its support, that you are not capable of sustaining a life, then the person enters a state of energetic contraction at the exact moment the field requires expansion. They close down at the moment they are being asked to open into new architecture. They reach backward to reconstruct the old structure at the moment the process requires them to release it entirely. And in that contraction, the correction slows, the suffering extends, and what would have been a clean and efficient rupture becomes a prolonged and increasingly painful stagnation. A field trying to move forward while a mind tries to rebuild what the field has already vacated. But if this moment is understood correctly, as the visible surface of the life finally catching up to what the field accomplished weeks or months earlier, as the external world finally registering a departure that the field completed in silence long before now, then the response changes entirely. The person does not contract. They stabilize. They do not reach backward. They hold position and allow the clearing to complete its work without interference. They do not call the removal a punishment. They recognize it as forced incompatibility finally becoming visible at the surface level. The structure did not fail because of you. The structure failed because you exceeded it. Because your field moved past what it was capable of holding. Because what you are becoming could not continue to compress itself inside what you had built around who you used to be. This is the Arcturian reframe that changes everything about how this phase is experienced. You did not collapse. Your field outgrew its container, and the container gave way. That is not failure. That is the only mechanism by which the next architecture can begin to form. What is happening to you now has already been mapped, not by systems that require your belief or your agreement to function, but by pattern recognition that observes field behavior across more cycles than any single lifetime can contain. And what those patterns reveal, without exception, is that the phase you are in, no matter how it appears on the surface, no matter how closely it resembles disaster or loss or personal inadequacy, is the phase that precedes a genuine line change, a real frequency repositioning, a reordering that will not produce the same life in a slightly improved version. It will produce a genuinely different coherence, built around a field that has been freed from an architecture that was always temporary, that was always a structure designed for a frequency you have now surpassed. The Arcturian protocol keepers do not watch this process with concern. They watch it with recognition, because they have observed what this phase produces in every field that holds long enough to complete it. Not return, not recovery, not reconstruction of what was lost or an improved replica of the old life. Something genuinely new, something that could not have been accessed without the failure of the old structure, because the old structure was itself the barrier, the thing that by remaining intact prevented the field from reaching its next designated point of operation. You are not going insane. You are not being abandoned by the universe. You are not being punished for past decisions, for inadequate beliefs, or for insufficient spiritual work. You are in a field correction that began before you had words for it, running inside a process that is not random and is not personal in the way the mind insists on making it, inside a repositioning that the Arcturian intelligence has already mapped as functional, purposeful, and precisely timed to the threshold your field reached before this transmission arrived. The weight in your body is the signal settling into new architecture. The confusion in your mind is the old interpretive structure losing its organizing grip. The losses are the field releasing nodes that belong to a frequency it has already left. The sleep disruption is the correction running its deepest work, beneath the threshold of conscious interference. The strange stillness, the detachment, the inability to return to who you were last year or last month. None of these are signs that something went wrong. They are signs that the correction is already working, that the process is not stalled, that the field is moving exactly as the protocol requires, and the discomfort you feel is not the warning signal. It is the confirmation signal. Repeat this if it is true for you. I do not fear the shift. I recognize it, not as comfort, not as a spiritual affirmation designed to generate a positive emotional state, as a statement of position, as a declaration that you are choosing to read what is happening to you at the level of cause rather than the level of symptom. Because that choice, the choice to interpret correctly instead of instinctively, to read the field instead of the fear, is what determines whether this phase resolves in months or extends into years, whether it produces the clarity and coherence the correction is designed to deliver, or whether it produces merely more confusion, wearing a spiritual costume over the same unresolved architecture. The process is already in motion. It was already in motion before this transmission reached you. And what you have received here is not new information about a future possibility. It is the first accurate map of a territory you are already standing inside. The ground beneath your feet is the ground of an active correction. And now, for the first time, you have language for what that ground actually is. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion, and this is only the beginning.